So, guys, as we were discussing, that yes, the difference essentially between these two positions are that of between what HLA Hart says and that of what realists were saying. Is essentially this, that HLA Hart thinks that there are certain core cases, okay, when there is no disagreement about meaning, but then there are also penumbral cases where there are disagreements, okay. So when the meaning is uncertain, when there is a gap in the law or the meaning is uncertain, in those cases, the judges do exercise their discretion. And how do they exercise their discretion? They apply their own moral understanding. They apply their own policy, understanding of policy considerations, and then they arrive at, then they decide what the law is, or law ought to be in that instant case. So yes, that's his position. Okay, now you know that H.L. Hart's work is also essentially to save positivism from this criticism as was developed by the realists. Okay, so yes, no, that's essentially Hart's position. Now there's another philosopher who we are going to study in subsequent lectures by the name Lon Fuller. Okay, he's an American jurist. Okay, he gives a very interesting twist to the example that we discussed. Okay, the rule that prohibits vehicle in the park. Okay, so we were scratching our head over whether that would prohibit skateboards from being taken inside. Okay, now, well, in the case of skateboard, he says that, okay, we know that it's difficult for us to decide on this because maybe skateboard, is a vehicle or maybe it is not. So H.L. Hart would say that how do we decide the matter? Well, judges will, use their own policy understanding or moral views to decide the matter. Fuller would say that, well, not just that, okay, not in just those confusing cases. Certain other, situations might also arise, okay. What is that? Now imagine a situation that some military veterans, okay, they want to install a war vehicle, okay, not for the purpose of driving, but as a display object there in the park, okay. Now, whether this law prohibits that as well? Now, how do you decide the matter? Okay, if you were a judge, how would you decide the matter? It is in fact difficult. But if your answer is that I'll have to look at what the law was made for, okay, then decide the matter, that maybe the law was made, to reduce pollution or reduce chances of accident, etc., okay, then you look at the purpose for which laws have been made, and it is only in the context of that purpose you are able to give a new meaning to not new meaning, you are able to understand what the meaning of the word vehicle is in that law, okay. So you have to look at the purpose for which the law has been created. Now suppose the law has been created to avoid collisions, to avoid accident, to avoid pollution there, then installing a military vehicle is not really a problem because so yes, if we are to, so even when it comes to vehicles, okay, that the military truck is clearly a case of vehicle, literally that's what it is. But even then, without the policy, without the purpose, okay, for which the law has been created, even in those cases where there is agreement, there can be cases of disagreement as well, okay. So this is a very interesting twist that he has brought here, okay. So Fuller is essentially telling us that even in core cases, okay, the agreement is possible only when we also agree about certain other things, okay. So that would include, so you'd say the purpose for which the law has been created, we need to look at that, okay. Only then we will be able to decide on this. So what would H.L. Hart say to this reply by Fuller? He says that, well, Fuller, congratulations, you have a very sound reasoning that you have provided us there with respect to necessity of purpose, but that still does not negate, what I said earlier, that there is no necessary connection between law and morality. Okay, it could be any purpose. The purpose could be whatever it is. The purpose does not have to be a moral purpose. So he says that this reply still does not negate my other thesis that there is no necessary connection between law and morality. Now, in the subsequent classes, okay, we will look at Hart-Fuller debate. Okay, we'll start with Hart versus Gustav Redbruck on the question of relation between law and morality. Then we'll proceed on to discussing how how the Hart-Fuller debate unfolds on the question of relation of law and morality. But you know that ultimately, when we are to converge on the meaning, okay, of a word in those hard cases, okay, some kind of shared moral understanding has to be there. Okay, some kind of shared moral understanding has to be there. So if it is not there, then certain problems do arise. Okay, but what would HLA Hart say? Well, maybe those moral questions are necessary. Maybe judges do in fact take moral reasoning into consideration in deciding a case, but the cases but then in those cases when the law is made by the judges, okay, it is law not because that law has been based on certain moral understanding of the judge, but because it has been decided by the judge like that. So the rule of recognition says that, okay, what judges decide is the law. So if that is the case, then that's what HLA Hart's position is. Ultimately, he says that there is no necessary connection between law and morality. But our philosopher Fuller disagrees. So he says that law is a purposive enterprise. As against Hart, Fuller says that law is a purposive enterprise. Okay, without the purpose, laws lack meaning. Okay. So it gives you an interesting example that suppose you are to describe a chair to a Martian. Okay, so how would you describe that? It has 4 legs, that it has a flat surface, and then there's a portion that goes vertically up from that vertical space. Okay, vertical what do you call it? Not that flat bed. But imagine someone who has no concept of what chair is for. Okay, this description will make no sense to that being. Okay, you have to tell the being first that a chair is for the purpose of sitting. Then you can say that, well, there are 4 legs, okay, or these days you have even 1 leg, whatever. Then you have a flat surface on which we put our weight. And there's a reclining portion on which we rest our back. Now probably it makes more sense what a chair is. Okay, so what is the meaning of the word chair? In the same way, Fuller would say that we cannot merely describe the law as it is. Okay, there is a purpose for which law exists. Okay, without that purpose, then law has no meaning. So that discussion will happen in the subsequent classes. But for now, in the other class, what is being discussed is essentially this. Okay, that is also related to this question that we are discussing right now. That when judges adjudicate, according to HLA Hart, they decide the matter based on rules. Okay, rules act in all or nothing fashion. Okay, what does that mean? That rules either apply or they do not apply. Okay. If there are conflicting rules, then one rule survives, the other does not. Okay, that's how rules apply in a particular case. Okay, and HLA Hart also says that if there are confusing cases, if there are hard cases, judges apply policy consideration in arriving at a decision. But unlike this position, Ronald Dworkin says that, well, that's problematic. Okay, that's very problematic. Why is it? He says that legal system is not merely about rules. Okay, they're also about principles. Okay, now principles and rules do not behave in the same way. You find rules in rule books, but principles are there. They are in the political morality of the community where you are looking at the rules. Okay, you will find it in the previous cases maybe. So But it's essentially about the political morality of a particular community. So the principles that here he's referring to are not those universalistic principles, because he's not that kind of natural law thinker. Okay, these are principles that you find in that particular political community. So when a judge comes across a Hart case, okay, the judge does not, in the absence of rules, okay, judges do not, or you can say ought not to decide using his own policy consideration or policy understanding. Okay, judges in those cases where the rules do not address the matter, judges then have to look for principles. Okay, now Sir might have already discussed about all this. I'll share some readings, and if you guys have confusions, you guys can come back to me. But you know this, that principles play a very important part in the outcome of a particular case, as Sir had already discussed in the case of Riggs versus Palmer. So yes, our philosopher Dworkin says that no, judges do not create the law. Okay, they do not, or they ought not to exercise discretion for two important reasons. What are those? Judges do not have democratic legitimacy. They do not represent the people. Okay, so policies, okay, are to be made by those who are elected representatives. Okay, judges are not, so they cannot create policies. They cannot make policies, laws based on their policy understanding. They have to decide what the rights are of the subjects, okay, in that instant case, based on existing principles. Now that is very essential. He says existing principles. Why is that necessary? Because imagine this, if the judge is deciding the matter now by creating a law now, then there was no pre-existing right. The right is being created right in this instance. Okay, that is not acceptable. That is problematic, because if I am to be penalized, if I am to be punished, if I am to suffer a consequence, okay, that should be, for infraction of a law that already existed. Okay, but if the judges are making the law right now, then how is that possible? So that's a very important problem. Okay, so yeah. So for democratic considerations, because judges lack democratic legitimacy, and here the problem that I discussed, okay, I should be bound by the law that already existed, and my rights already exist in the legal system. Okay, rights are not created at this instance because the law is being created at this instance by the judges. That should not be the case. So because of that, he says that, well, when judges decide, they do not say that, well, we are making this law. When they reason, the voluminous, judgments that they write, sometimes, tens of, hundreds of, ratios that they cite, they essentially do all those for what? To say that, well, this is what the law is, okay? This is what the law is based on, that Herculean task that they undertake, okay? To find out what the law is, rather than, law has been, okay, already, and they do not decide what the law is in this. They do not create the law in this instant case. Okay, so they have to say that based on what the law is, this is how we decide. Not that we are writing this to be law from now onwards, and then this is the outcome. No, that's problematic, as Dworkin would say. And all the cases and examples might have been already discussed. Okay, so if necessary, we will go ahead with this discussion further. But I will first start with Lon Fuller's position on law and morality in the next class. So thank you for today. If you guys have any queries, confusions, feel free to write to me. Thank you. Good day.